Right. It's time now for the health segment. Yeah, they want me to join because they think this is a matter of concern to me.
Yes.
I don't know about that.
No, that's not what we said.
I don't know about that, but
we just said that.
Okay, you know one thing I haven't told you, my ability to read minds.
No, we haven't said that it's of concern to you. What we are saying is that what he's talking about will tell you very soon. That thing, because he's a man, he can, identify with what people, emotional trauma, pain, men who are going through it may be going through. That's all we said. No, we are only so that you be a mouthpiece for the men. Because me, I don't have some things,
All right.
But today we're talking about atherosclerosis and erectile dysfunction too. So did I pronounce it correctly? Because look, my office people
this is a big name.
2 weeks. These people couldn't pronounce their thing.
This is a big name.
Atherosclerosis.
Athero what?
Sclerosis.
Atherosclerosis.
But sclerosis is the easy part.
Atherosclerosis. I'll break it down and then we'll pronounce it how comfortable we feel.
That's all.
But anyways, good morning to you, Dr. Kelvin Owusu is the head occupational health and wellness, Claron Health International. And yeah, he sells yam chips on the site.
I like that because this is Ghana, Yeah.
Yes,
anyways, good morning, Doc.
Good morning. Good to be here. It was a fabulous weekend, and I mean, it's giving us some new vim, so we are pushing forward.
Awesome. We're happy for you.
So this big word, what is it? What does it mean?
So basically, it simply means the position of fat, cholesterol, and other things into our arteries, so making them hard and not as flexible as they are supposed to be.
Okay.
So that's what it simply means. But we have to give it a big name so that
you attach importance to it.
Yeah. But it could kill you, so it's important.
So how does one get to that point where they're diagnosed with atherosclerosis?
So, indeed, most of the time we don't actually diagnose atherosclerosis per se.
Okay.
But we diagnose the consequences or the things that come about as a result of atherosclerosis, and it's really a kind of a chicken and egg situation because one of the key things is hypertension. Hypertension can be a risk factor to the development of atherosclerosis, and it can also be as a result of atherosclerosis, you see. And so it's one of those things that, it begins and ends the whole story, But quite apart from hypertension, there are other things as well that can result from atherosclerosis in combination with the hypertension, such as stroke, such as heart attack. So it's not only broken heart that can cause heart attack. This one can also cause heart attack. Then there's something called intermittent claudication. I'm sure we'll go into a bit more details. So there are several things several complications that can come about as a result of atherosclerosis. So yes, it's good to talk about it.
All right. And why are we talking about it alongside erectile dysfunction?
Yes, and this is actually very important because, and I like that you...
Yes, we dragged in.
Yes, you dragged in.
I said, I don't have some things, so...
Yes, no, because the thing is, a lot of men, no, let me back it up a bit. First of all, hypertension is a man's disease.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it affects black people more than the other races. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you are male, your risk of developing hypertension is higher than the female. Because men, we do a lot of things that the women can't do. So I identify with you.
We're in this boat together.
Yeah, we are.
Yo.
But here's the challenge. Men are also more likely to develop complications from hypertension because they are so stubborn. They don't take their medication, and one of the key reasons why most men don't take their medication is because they think the medication will affect their sexual performance.
The myths.
It's not a myth per se.
To some extent,
it's true to an extent, but it is not all men who develop erectile dysfunction as a result of the treatment of hypertension. That's number one. Number two, it's not all hypertension treatment that will result in erectile dysfunction. You see, but because of this perception, a lot of men won't even take their medication. So they'd rather die than treat the hypertension. So
I want to make sure, man.
They rather die than have something else die.
Man.
But the reality is, and that's the point of today's discussion, the reality is that the hypertension itself, or the atherosclerosis that results in the hypertension itself, is causing more erectile dysfunction than the treatment of.
Oh boy.
So you see, that's why
the misconception.
Exactly. So the fact that you're not taking your medication does not mean that you're not going to have the erectile dysfunction. You see,
Yeah.
so the medication, yes, some medication can cause erectile dysfunction, but there's a significant proportion that would get the erectile dysfunction as a result of the hypertension and the atherosclerosis combination itself. You see, because your body is smart. You see, there's something called fight or this when I mentioned. You see, I'm an Ashanti, so I have to be very careful. fight or flight.
Okay.
Not fright, flight, please. FL.
You have to know yourself, and then you have to pace yourself sometimes. Yeah. So fight or flight. You see, the body knows what the essential organs are. And unfortunately, the penis or the sexual function or functionality is not considered an essential function at a particular time. What I'm trying to say is that if you are not healthy as a person, your body will not even channel the resources to go and...
So your body will start prioritizing.
Exactly, will start prioritizing other things. Yeah. So if you don't get your hypertension under control, you struggle with erection.
And of course, an erection has everything to do with blood flow.
It's all about your pipes. I mean, as I described, it's all about if your channels have a problem, it's not going to be, you're not going to have a good time, you see. And so erectile dysfunction is one of the complications that can result from atherosclerosis. It's because I mentioned there is a hardening of the blood vessel and narrowing as well. So basically, the fat gets deposited in your blood vessel. The blood vessel is supposed to be a flexible tube, just like a water hose, to carry blood from the heart to all the various parts of the body. Without blood, you die basically. So if atherosclerosis, if you start off life with a lumen, the inside of your blood vessel this big, as you grow older, it begins to narrow because of certain habits we'll talk about shortly. It begins to narrow because of the deposition of fats. Now, if that narrowing becomes so significant that blood cannot, a significant volume of blood cannot go through, how do you intend to sustain an erection? Because erection basically, as a Pioko, majestically declared.
Our in-house experts.
Exactly.
I take it.
Erection basically is blood going into the penis to fill the various spaces, and then that blood staying there for the duration that it needs to stay there, and then afterwards, due to some biochemical reactions, it will be released to come back out. So if blood is not able to go into the penis because of blockage of the vessels, then you either struggle to get an erection or you have difficulty even sustaining that erection. So the summary of what I'm trying to say is that hypertension and its cousin atherosclerosis can be the reason why you are having erectile dysfunction, and it may not even be because of the drugs at all. So take your medication. That's my message this morning.
You are better off treating the hypertension than
exactly.
But doc, so how do we take care of ourselves so that we don't get to the point of atherosclerosis in the first place? Or because you mentioned that as you grow older, naturally there'll be some deposits and your arteries they're closing up. But how do we get to the point where our arteries don't move from water hose to PVC pipe?
Well, I mean, as you rightly said, as part of the aging process, these things are going to happen. You see, so that's why it's better to live your best life when you are young. So that when as you
live your best life.
The time is now. Don't postpone things. But there are some things that we do that speeds up these things, and number one is our lifestyle. I mean, hypertension itself has been classified as a lifestyle disease. So anything that would speed up hypertension is also part of the lifestyle category. So the thing, what we eat, whether we exercise or not, all these play a role. So for instance, now our diet is heavily processed. So that's the problem. That's a major challenge. You see, because when you eat a lot of processed food, the conversion from that food to sugar is much faster. Now, if you couple that with the fact that we are a bit more sedentary now, it means that you have a lot of sugar presented to the body, but you're not using enough because sugar is the primary fuel. So if you're not using enough fuel, the body is going to store the excess because it's thinking that some time to come you're going to need fuel. So it's storing the fuel for a future time, kind of like a bank balance. And that is where fat and obesity comes from. So obesity fat is basically a store of fuel for future use. Unfortunately, because we are continuously eating, we never use that future fuel, so we just keep storing, so we keep getting bigger and bigger. Now, as part of the storage, some of that fat is then deposited in the blood vessel. So a typical example of a fat that's deposited in the blood vessel is cholesterol. So you hear people talking about cholesterol here, cholesterol there. As human as we are natural, we produce our own cholesterol. So ideally, you don't actually need any more cholesterol from anybody else to come in. So every time, and again, cholesterol is produced only by animals. So anytime you take in an animal diet, you are introducing more cholesterol into your.
That's why Creamy Plus is good for people. Creamy Plus, vegetable fat, no cholesterol. Creamy Plus. If you like to pour milk in your coffee, Creamy Plus is the thing. I'm telling you.
So yes, every time you have an animal-based diet, you are increasing your cholesterol availability, and so you are going to deposit more cholesterol into your blood vessels, and so you are going to speed up the process of atherosclerosis. So that's one huge bundle. So what you eat and how you expend. So obviously the solution would be to eat a healthier diet and to exercise more, physical activity. That's to solve that aspect. Then there's another aspect where people who smoke, for instance, smoking predisposes you to atherosclerosis, and that follows a whole different pathway. But yes, it does cause atherosclerosis. So if you can stop smoking, you obviously reduce your chance of developing atherosclerosis. And sometimes in some situations there are some disease conditions. Some inflammatory disease conditions can also predispose you. So people who have autoimmune forms of arthritis or other autoimmune inflammatory diseases have a tendency to develop atherosclerosis as well. So all these things put you at risk of atherosclerosis. Of course, there's also one thing so what I've mentioned, what I've mentioned so far are modifiable, which means you can actually do something about it. I mean, you can decide to stop smoking, you can decide to eat healthier, you can decide to exercise, but you cannot decide to stop aging. So that's not a modifiable risk factor. And then family history. If it happens, so it so happens that in your family people tend to develop hypertension or these atherosclerosis related things, then again you can't modify because you can't change your genes. So these are some of the things. So those things that are in your control, we really have to take advantage and then fix them so that we can slow down the progression of atherosclerosis. Otherwise, the erectile dysfunction,
it will come. It will represent.
And that seems to have, whipped up the interest of a lot of people.
Of course.
Fifi from Tesano says, hello to Four and Apioko. Kindly ask Dr. Usu to tell us how long an erection should last.
Hey. No, but it's a legitimate question.
Yes,
typically or medically?
Typically, it also tends to be medically. So an erection should actually not go beyond five minutes.
No, tell them all. Those who are taking things
they are taking
to last longer.
Yes. So
Blackstone and whatever.
Tell them.
Dragon, those people.
Tell them.
We should probably have a whole session about sex because it's a major topic. 5 minutes is actually enough to do whatever needs to be done. Even if you are going to spice it up and do all sorts of things, 20-30 minutes is okay. But where you are taking things to enhance it to an extent where you are going
2 hours.
Yes, and that's the
2
problem.
hours, 3 hours.
Because remember we mentioned that it's an interplay of blood. Now the blood must be rich in oxygen, right? Now, if the blood stays in the penis so long that the oxygen is finished, you are actually killing your penis. And I have actually treated a person whose penis is dead. That is impotent. It cannot rise again. It's dead. Yes.
Wow.
The penis is dead.
No, you should see the reaction of all the men on the floor. They're all like,
it cannot resurrect.
Well, that's that one.
Doc, we need to bring you back to talk about this. We need to bring you back to talk about this.
Yes. Because if you're a healthy young male and you are taking enhancements that are meant for people with erectile dysfunction or people with impotence related things, you understand that you are adding what you don't need. So the complications are there. And as I said, this is not hearsay. I have personally managed a person who had that complication, and for the rest of his life, except the good Lord himself intervenes, he cannot have an erection. So it's real.
All right, guys. Why is it's enough?
It's more than enough.
Stop taking those things. Charlie, 5 minutes, you are good. You don't owe anybody any Janko Charlie, check yourself and stay healthy.
I do heritage caravan in the bedroom. It's not necessary.